Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, today we're going to be carrying on my absolutely favourite series. I know you're not meant to have your favourite children, but I do when it comes to my series. And one of those is my Studio Ghibli journey. That's right, we're going to be carrying on my Ghibli journey with today. We're going to be looking at the 1994 movie Pom Poko. I'm so excited for this one because it just looks absolutely bonkers. Shape-shifting raccoons. Wonderful. I'm here for it. You already have my money. Take it. You know what I mean? I'm just so excited. But before we get into all of that excitement, all we've got to do is a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, to leave a 5-star rating. So, for anybody that is new, welcome. For anybody that is returning, thank you for coming back. Basically, this series is my Studio Ghibli journey. And what that means is the fact that I have decided to go in chronological order, go for all of the Studio Ghibli movies. And so far, I've watched Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, which is my absolute favourite. I've watched Grave of the Fireflies. I've watched My Neighbor Totoro only yesterday, Castle in the Sky. I've read some really beautiful and powerful movies. Some have broke my heart, some has made me laugh, but overall, each one of them, even the ones like Only Yesterday and Ocean Waves, even ones like that which weren't made for me, that really, especially Ocean Waves, I didn't really understand at all. I still enjoyed because there's no way you can watch these movies and not sit there and go and understand and see the beauty and see what they're trying to tell, even though it's not made for you. And that's just pure talent in the studio, to be honest, in the writing and the characters and the visuals and everything. So I've really, really enjoyed my journey so far. But like I said, if you're coming in new with this review, then by all means, you can go back and check out my reviews of the earlier movies. I love Porco Rosso, by the way. Like, that film always comes up. Every time since watching it, that's a film that always comes up now, and I love it. I really, really do. I'd rather be a pig than a fascist. It's just ingrained in my brain, and I think it's hilarious. But yeah, that's another one you should definitely check out because that was a very fun review that I did. But today, we're moving on to 1994. The next one in line, Ash Ocean Waves, is Pom Poko. And yeah, let's get straight into it, shall we? So, the movie synopsis goes as follows. As the human city development encroaches on the raccoon dog population's forest and meadow habitat, the raccoon dogs find themselves faced with the very real possibility of extinction. In response, the raccoon dogs engage in a desperate struggle to stop the construction and preserve their home. That is the short but sweet synopsis of this movie, thanks to IMDb. As for the development, so this one's a bit of a struggle to find, but I managed to find some things to talk about for this film. So, according to a French fan site, Buta Connection, after the release of Porco Rosso, Hayao Miyazaki and Toshio Suzaki wondered what would be the studio's next animated project. The course of Miyazaki's thoughts was simple: Buta Buta, Tanuka, pig pig, raccoon dog. And so he decided that after a pig, the next film would feature Tanuki, Japanese raccoon dog, and Iso Takahata would be the director. In an interview in 1996, Takahata said that he would have liked to make a film whose story would have taken place in feudal Japan at the time of the warring clans. But referring to Princess Mononoke, he added, "The problem is that Miyazaki is already doing a very similar piece of work, and I don't believe that Studio Ghibli is willing to produce something that we've seen before." The period drama that Takahata would have wanted to make was Tao of the Heike, an epic account of the war between the Taira clan and the Minamoto clan for control of Japan at the end of the 12th century in the Genpei War from 1180 to 1185. Instead, the conflict is only referenced in Pom Poko. Takahata sees a filiation between these epic tales and Pom Poko, though it's a documentary-like aspects, thereby grounding it in reality. The film ends up with a narrator who tells us the story of the Tankui residents against the humans over several years, sometimes with a few repetitions, as in The Great Tale of Yesteryear. The idea for a Tankui film came from Miyazaki. Without being inspired by any particular novel or manga, with this in mind, the renowned satirical author Hisashi Ainu, again, I do apologize if I'm butchering any of the pronunciations. I am dyslexic. I should have said that at the beginning for anybody that didn't know. But so we'll soldier on. But if I do offend anybody, I do apologize. Who previously worked with Miyazaki on The Wonderful World of Puss in Boots in 1969. He was contacted by Toshio Suzuki and Takata following the release of, again, I'm going to butcher this name, Fukoki, the record of Belly Brum, his novel on Tankus, published by Shishokia in 1985. The advertising phase that appeared on local newspapers at the time for novel were: the Tanku are human, set in Shikoku, an area known for its deep connections with Tanku. The novel blurred the lines between Tanku and humans. After a long discussion on the subject, the author offered several scenarios and ideas to which Takata refused. Finally, the dramatic urbanization and the political logical manifesto became the work of Takata's thoughts and pen. In Japan, deforestation deprives the Tanku of their natural habitat, and for these animals, it is a real problem. It is a tragedy. A Japanese poem from a century and a half ago says, "What entertainment!" However, who knows how and who knows when everything has become sad. And that is all of the development that I could find on this movie. Again, I do apologize on any punctuations if I offend anybody or anything like that. I do try my absolute hardest, and I tell you the truth, a bit of sort of behind the curtain here for you. When it comes to movies like this, especially with Studio Ghibli, I tend to reread the developments over and over again, at least 3-4 times, just so I get it in my head of the flow and how to pronounce certain things. But still, again, being dyslexic, no matter how many times you reread something, there are times where you find new things each time. And sometimes I'll read through and I'll be like, oh, I know how to pronounce that. And I get to that word and my brain's like, no, I don't know what that is. So again, I do apologize, but I am trying my hardest. And again, it's all just a bit of fun at the end of the day. But again, I don't want to offend anybody. So if I have, I do apologize. My punctuation is terrible. I struggle with English as it is. So, of course, when it comes to saying Japanese words, I'm going to struggle just as much. But that shouldn't detract on how excited I am for the film. This seems definitely up my alley. This idea of raccoons, and they can shape shift, and they're going to war with humans because humans are taking away their home. And again, it's like a 7-year period. It's like a documentary like style. All of this is just ringing like green flags to me of like, this sounds really good, this seems really different, it doesn't feel like anything I've ever seen before. Again, that's one of the things I found with Ghibli, is the fact of a lot of the films that they do, other people, especially at the time, weren't doing, but also the fact of you don't see many movies nowadays doing this as well. They generally feel like they're not only trendsetters, but they kind of step the standard. But once they do it, it's the fact of they did it so well that nobody tries to do it again. It's just brilliant. So I'm excited to see what the next Ghibli adventure is. So fingers crossed, it's going to be good. We will see. But without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to go off and watch this movie. And then when we come back, I'll give you my first impressions and we'll talk about the story and all that jazz. So I'll see you all in a minute. And welcome back, everybody. So I quite enjoyed this film. I wouldn't say that I loved it, but I quite enjoyed it. What I really liked was the themes and the core sort of story points that the film tries to portray. The idea of environmentalism and deforestation, and how like humans are basically coming in, and like because it's done in a documentary style, which I also love, how like it's got narration, how it explains to you like during the 60s, 70s and 80s there was a big baby boom and that Japan was growing. It was growing to a huge sort of economical sort of country after like the war and such, that they needed more space for all the people. So they had to branch out, and all the places that were farmland, were beautiful and serene, needed to be cut down and developed to make homes. And which is great for humans, but it's not great for the animals and for the creatures that live there. Case in point, the raccoons. And they basically stop going to war with each other and go to war with humanity. And they try to be peaceful at times. They try to kind of like warn them off, try to be like, we're spirits and we used to be revered, and humans used to know not to mess with us and mess with, basically, yeah. And it goes from there. They try to be peaceful, and they end up going quite violent. They end up killing like 3 people at one stage, and it's one of those how the story goes on and how they are trying to just show humanity, show humans, show the people that show the builders that like we are here. Like, please don't sort of take our sort of our home, our land. And I won't spoil it, but it everything that they do, it doesn't really work, sadly. It's not completely like the way I've just said it. It does sound very heartbreaking. There are moments where, like, again, somebody like me who does care a lot about animals and the environment, there were certain moments where I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, it is quite sort of heartbreaking and sad. But they mix it up with sort of different art styles. Like whenever the raccoons, whenever they shapeshift, the different art styles of how the characters look, which I thought was really, really good. And there are funny moments, there are silly moments. I got surprised, my honest, when all the male raccoons have testicles, which sounds completely odd to say, I know, but I just wasn't expecting it from a Studio Ghibli movie. Nothing ever happens with them. It's just the fact of they're just there, and then once you notice them, you can't not notice them. And it's little things like that where like there's comedy mixed in with the sort of important themes as well, with the environment. And like I said, I really, really enjoyed the documentary style of it, where it tells the tale, and then as it's telling the tale, kind of like if you ever watched Sandlot, Stand By Me, these sort of heartfelt sort of movies where you'd get moments where it would tell the story, and then you would get like a narration of like, old Jimbo was never the same after the train track incident, little things like that, and you would get sort of existential, sort of extra sort of context of happening in the story, and like you kind of get a bit more in depth the idea of the shape shifting and the raccoons, and how that, again, I thought it was quite funny how that, in a way, to kind of the raccoons understand humans, they basically decide to go and live among humans. So they shapeshift into humans. But the problem is, because it takes so much focus and energy to not just transform, but also keep that form for a long period of time. If you ever see any humans walking around that got really powerful sort of bags under their eyes, they're more than likely a raccoon that has shapeshifted. And I think that's brilliant. I love the idea of that. And it even has a little narration side note of like, you ever wondered why the energy companies in the last few years have doubled and tripled in production? It's because of the need of raccoons for the extra bit of glucose, the extra bit of energy to keep them going, which I thought was really, really funny. But yeah, so it does have the strong themes of environmentalism and deforestation, and how like you need to fight against the destruction of their home by fighting sort of the human developers. But then you also get the community and the collaboration, and how the raccoons, sort of despite all their differences, come together to not only defend their territory, but also come together and celebrate what it means to be a raccoon, what it means to be them, to be a tanku. You know what I mean? Like every time that any victory, whatever it is, somebody is feeling better, have a party. If they win in a battle against humans, let's have a party, let's have a celebration. They are very happy and jolly group of raccoons. They are very happy sort of species, and all they really want to do is live peacefully. They want to live together. They want to start fighting. So there are those moments where they have to fight against humans, but they don't want to. But it brings the unity together, the cooperation in the face of adversity. And you've got the two sides, the two different sort of sides of the coin. You've got the one side of the raccoons where it's like, let's be peaceful. Let's try and talk to the humans. Let's try and make them understand as to we're here, but you know, please don't destroy our home. But at the same stage, they're not allowed to, like humans and raccoons, they're not meant to talk. You know, animals and humans are not meant to talk. It's the fact of it's the one rule. So they can't talk to them. So they have to find ways to kind of show themselves and show that they're here and that the spirits and all that kind of stuff and the tales are true. Like, this is our home. You're making the spirits angry. Please stop. And then you got the other side of a lot of the other raccoons where it's like, no, we have to kill all the humans. We've got to kill humanity, wipe them all out. They're like cockroaches. We've just got to wipe the slate clean. And if we want to protect ourselves, that's what we need to do. And like, because it's over like I think 7 or 8 year period, you get to see how the characters grow up and change and evolve, really, and how their views change, and how it's like at first you get some of them that really want to fight humans, and then some of them start to sort of go, well, I don't want to. I feel like this guy, what he's saying is actually makes more sense. We're going to try and be peaceful. And obviously, I don't want to get into sort of major sort of story, sort of spoilers, but you know, it is very powerful in certain moments. And again, with the documentary style that does such a great job, you get sort of the back without having to see anything. You kind of get the context of like the way humans are starting to notice these things, but at the same stage is the fact of they're not listening. Because if you tell them, "Oh, I saw loads of raccoons push my big truck down a hill," you're not going to believe them. You'll be like, "Yeah, raccoons. Yeah, right, right, buddy. Walk on, sort of thing." And it's the blindness of humanity. It's the blindness of seeing nature, seeing the thing that's right in front of our face. Is the fact of, yeah, because it can't be real because we all say it's not real. We all say that animals can't shapeshift. We all say that magic doesn't exist. We all say that fairies and all these wonderful things and dragons and blah blah blah, they don't exist because we don't want to believe, because believing is sometimes considered stupid, you know. And that's just how humanity, not all, but that's how humanity kind of goes ahead, is the fact of, we'll just chop down the trees. It doesn't matter. They're just trees. But but at the same stage, what we don't realize is the fact of we need the trees as much as the animals need the trees. The Amazon is basically the lungs of the planet. You get rid of that, we'll suffocate and die. But people don't care. It's like, oh, we need paper, we need lumber, blah 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 blah. We need agriculture, space, and all this jazz. And yeah, it's I don't know. It's a very poignant message, but at the same time, it's very sad. It's that idea of humanity and nature, and how the movie, it really sort of critiques sort of progress at any cost, and that how you have the concept and sort of the mentality of humans and how we develop, and it's how it's like, if left unchecked, urbanization can really come to blows with the environment and the sort of people that live in that environment as well. Again, it goes back to the idea of like, you're chopping down trees in the Amazon, but there are still uncontacted tribes that live in the Amazon, and that you go down and start cutting down those trees, you've now limited, their land that they can live off. And also, you're also threatening their culture and their way of life. And if you keep going, eventually you're going to kill them off and destroy their home. But then all that history, all that human life, all that culture is now gone. And it's done in such a way with this movie where you've got the Pom Poko, you've got the Tanku, the raccoons, same sort of thing, an idea. You've got their culture, their life, their beliefs is being taken away and with their land. Because of humans wanting to urbanize, wanting to sort of expand. And for a film from 1994, very powerful, very, very powerful, very important message. Sadly, I would love to say that since then we have changed, but we've only, if anything, we've double in production in the terms of in destroying the environment, really. But I loved it for that. I loved it for trying. I loved it for telling a story that was easily digestible for young people and old, to kind of be like, yes, we laugh and a joke, and we do it in a comedic way, and we do sort of character like raccoons that can shapeshift. But at the same stage, if you look between sort of the funniness and you actually see what the story's being told, you can realize there's actually a lot more sadness and heartbreak here, that all they're really trying to do is save their life, save their livelihood, save their culture, and that's why they celebrate all the time. It's not because they like to celebrate; it's the fact of, oh yeah, we've won, we've stopped them, or we've made it. We can survive. We can have another day of our culture. It's not over yet, so let's celebrate that. Let's enjoy the little things. Let's enjoy the moment for now, and then let's celebrate again whenever we can. It's a wonderful idea, a wonderful thought. Um, yeah, I just thought this film was really, really brilliant. I didn't fall in love with it. Like, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but I did enjoy it. And Studio Ghibli is known for talking about environmentalism and stuff like that. And it's been a while since we've actually had a movie that sort of revolves around that. I think the last one, I think, was Laputa, if I remember correct. Oh no, sorry, or possibly Totoro. But Totoro, that was more to do with the idea of spirits and being a child and being young at heart. But that still had a very sort of strong idea of culture and the spirits and environment as well. So yeah, I think it's Laputa was probably the last one. But even so, it's just nice to have a story like this that exists that was just wow, so well done, you know. And I loved it. I really, really did. And like I said, the art style was gorgeous. I love the moments when like you have different art styles. So you've got raccoons that look very realistic and very real, and then they shapeshift from the raccoons to a raccoon that walks and sort of talks on two legs. And that looks very cartoony. So you have like a realistic cartoon, you have a cartoony version of the raccoon, and then when they turn it to the humans, they've got like a realistic looking human, you know. And I love that. I think that was great. And then when they're turning into different things, when they have like this moment where they're trying to do this big sort of parade and trying to scare the humans, there's a moment where like you've got this giant skeleton just walking around and ghosts and spirits, and like there's this one scene where you've got these two raccoons that shapeshift into these little girls, and they knock on the door of where these workmen are, and they basically say to him like, "Oh, where's our home? You know, we've just came back from the stars, and we come back and our home's been destroyed. Why did you destroy our home?" Be really, really sort of like ring, sort of like very creepy, and then running around giggling. And there are sort of funny moments, but they're trying to sort of terrify and scare the workers off, and it does work. But the problem is the fact if you might have scared some guys off, but there's always somebody who's willing to do anything for a paycheck. You know, and that's what the story tells, and that's why it explains it. Like you push back a bit, but the problem is the determination of humanity, and that's the same in any story, really. And I think that's one of the things that humans like to show in all of our art and all of our books and all of our films and music and whatever things that humans create. That you can never put humanity down. Is that humans will never stop fighting, and that's basically what we are as a species, as a culture. We are a being that is constantly inventing new things, who's constantly making new things, who's constantly expanding, who is very resilient to anything really, to adversity, to views, to opinions, to whatever it is. We will fight for whatever we believe in, and we're a very hearty species. I would say we're a very hearty race. And that is it in all of our culture, really. In our cultures, you know, it's our determination. And the raccoons quickly started to learn this is the fact that you can push them back, but you can never stop them. Humans will just keep coming, and we do. And yeah, there were many moments when I was watching this movie, and my brain was sort of ticking over, being like, you know, I love the subject matter, I love what's going on, and I'm thinking about things, and I'm thinking of ideas and concepts of how sort of humans and our culture and other people's cultures and the environment and nature, and our sort of our connection to nature is not what it used to be. We used to have a really strong connection with nature, but we no longer have that, and that because we've sort of in urbanized, really. We all live in like big houses made out of bricks and stones and things like that, and then we sometimes, if you're lucky, you might have a garden. Some people aren't as lucky to have a garden, you know. It's that idea and concept of like we have to surround ourselves with nature, we have to have a window, we have to be able to see the world, but we just don't connect to it. You know, like there's been stories many times of like where people have gone without windows and they've just gone crazy because even though they could step outside their front door and see the world, because they don't have access to a window, because they don't have access to sunlight, to anything, they don't know what time it is, what day it is. They feel very disconnected and they feel very lost. And a lot of people end up going crazy because of it. And it's the same sort of idea and concept as the fact of we need a connection to the sun. We need a connection to the world. Otherwise, as humans, we start going crazy. So we have that connection still with the environment to the world. It's just not as focal as the point as it used to be, and I think that's incredibly sad. But it's movies like this, it's stories like this that really put emphasis on that as to the importance of not just humans' connection to nature and how that we need to connect to nature, but also the fact of what we forget. And this is coming to my overall thoughts, is the fact of we forget it's not just us on this planet. There are other creatures, and where there's other species. We need to start thinking about them. Just because we want to build a new condo, yeah, brilliant. But what are you having to take away from? Who are you having to take it away from? What animals can no longer live there because you built this new big house, a thing. And it's little things like that. It's like we just don't think. We think about ourselves, and we don't think about other things that live on this planet with us. Without them, we would all die anyway. Because again, it's the circle of life. It's the environment. It's the fact of it's the laws of nature. Best way to put it is the fact if you take one thing out, the whole laws break, and then other animals start to die, and eventually it affects us. Like bees, some of the smallest creatures on this planet, but also the more important than humans, to be honest, for what they do and what they give us. But there's no respect to bees at all. We just use them for their honey, but we don't really respect what we need them for. Again, I don't want to get in it, because if I do, I'm here all day talking about different things. But sort of to wrap it all up and come to my overall thoughts, this is a very powerful movie. It is a very, very well done movie. And also, at the end of it, it goes to say the fact of, one of the characters looks at the camera, looks at us, the audience, me and you, and basically goes like raccoons are lucky that they can shapeshift, and that they can, and it's true, raccoons can shapeshift, and that it's like they can sort of come into humans, and they can live among humans and live a somewhat normal life around humans. I mean, there's some other animals that can as well. Foxes, rabbits, and other animals can, but not every animal can shapeshift. So just think about those animals that can't shapeshift, the ones that can't live with humans as well. Those that have to live in the wild. What's going to happen to them once you get rid of all the wild places? And it's a great way to end the film. It really, really is. It's very much of like, you've seen this documentary, you've seen this tale that's been told, and at the very end, just before it ends, the main character, turns around, looks at you, and basically goes, "What's going to happen if we lose all this? We're lucky enough that we can sort of integrate with humans, but not all animals can. So what happens to them?" And I think it really drives it home, and it kind of makes you think, and it's made me think. And then it ends in sort of raccoons celebrating, as they do, being the fact of, we're all still together. Yes, we're living in a human world, but we have our moments where we can still find culture, we can still find who we are, who we used to be, and we can still survive. But not all, and we should celebrate that, but not all animals can have a chance to celebrate. So yeah, it's a very wonderful movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I did, and it's one of those where it's like, I might not have loved it. It's not one of my sort of top, sort of best Ghibli movies of all time, but it is still one that I appreciate, and I'm glad I got to watch it. And yeah, it was a very, very wonderful but heartbreaking film. As for some trivia, before we start, because I haven't done trivia in a long time, I found some trivia for this movie. So, Isao Takahata based Gonto on Hayao Miyazaki and his directing style. At the first preview screening, Miyazaki insisted again and again that he wasn't like Gonto. Producer Toshio Suzuki compared Shakuki and Takahata to Takahata. Miyazaki was reportedly crying throughout, and Suzuki thought that the reason was he probably saw his youth in the movie. As well as the Tanku in their ultra simplified forms were referred to during production as Sigura Tankuis, because they were drawn in a style alluding to that of artist Shigura. Again, if I do butcher the punctuations, I do apologize. Many Tanku have names suited to their personalities. So you've got Oku means fireball, Shakushi, I think, again, I do apologize, means positive fortitude. Gonto means steadfast authority. Seismon means blue left gate. Otama means ladle. Koharu means small spring, and Sasku means helper. Which that's pretty cool. I like that. I like those extra bits of details. Like if you again, I guess when the movie come out in Japan originally, you'd be able to appreciate that more because you'd know what those names mean. And so I appreciate them as well for now knowing what they mean. So I really really enjoyed that. But yeah, that's just a little bit of trivia for you. The next movie I'm going to watch is Whispers of the Heart from 1995. This one, from what I've seen, looks a bit like. Hold on, I did have it here. Hold on, there it is. From what I've seen from photos and that, it looks a bit like Ocean Waves, but with a cat in a bow tie. But you've got me on a cat in a bow tie and a hat and a top hat. I think that's just so swanky. I think it's just brilliant. So I'm a bit excited. I hope it's magical and it's as wonderful as it looks. Obviously, I don't want to look at too much because I don't want to spoil it. But just seeing a cat in a bow tie and a top hat, you've got me. But also at the same stage, like that looks incredibly Ghibli as well, and I just think it's wonderful. So that'll be the next one I look at. Would be Whisper of the Heart from 1995. But for now, thank you very much for joining me for Pom Poko. I do apologize if I butchered any names in this whole review. I have tried my best, but I struggle with English as it is for being dyslexic. So having to read other names, other languages is just difficult, but I am trying, and that's the main thing. So apart from that, I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you liked it. Thank you very, very much if you have. Make sure that you follow me on X at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on Spotify or YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Also, leave a like and then rate the podcast as well. I would be eternally grateful if you can do that and even follow me if you want to. As recording this, I think I'm at 131 followers on Spotify and about 304 on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe and you want to follow me on either of them or both, then I will be appreciative completely. And yeah, so you've been listening to the Howdy Beans podcast. I've been your host, Luke the Human. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.